Hi everyone. Thank you so much for attending this virtual event hosted by Product School. My name is Kavya and I am a senior product manager at PayPal. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to transition into product management from a customer facing and analytics role. I'm extremely excited to be here today and I hope this will be helpful for all the aspiring product managers. I also want to call out that all opinions and takeaways shared through this presentation are my personal learnings and not necessarily the only way to transition into product. Before I dive deeper, wanted to give a brief introduction about myself. I have about 8 plus years of work experience in many roles and 3 years of work experience in product. I started my career journey with Adobe Systems as a software engineer. I worked with Adobe for 2 years and then came over to the US to pursue my master's. After completing my master's, I joined PayPal as a solutions engineer, where I worked with PayPal SMB merchants and helped them integrate PayPal products. This role helped me understand customer needs and the importance of a customer centric product. As a solutions engineer, I was also extremely curious to understand the impact of the integrations my team and I were working on and how does it tie into a company KPI and goals. Thus, what started as a passion project by digging into the data to generate reports and insights eventually turned into a new job function where I stepped up into the role of an engagement manager and I managed bigger mid market merchants and automated the entire reporting process for all the integration teams. Having the experience of hearing firsthand feedback from customers, along with my passion to solve customer problems with data, motivated me to take up a career in product management. I transitioned into product 3 years back, internally within PayPal, where I started working on the risk and compliance platforms of PayPal. I'm currently working on creating the next generation checkout products for our consumers and merchants. Now, here comes the $1 million question. What is product management? There are millions of resources online where you can find a lot of information about product management. But here is my view on what makes a product manager role unique. Firstly, product managers are the central point of contact and are in the intersection of customer technology and business teams in any organization. The beauty of product management is that it does not completely fit into any of the traditional roles like engineering, sales, and marketing, but it's extremely critical to keep everyone in the company directed towards the overall vision and goal. Secondly, a product manager is responsible for building products which customers love. Teams will have different targets they're trying to achieve. For example, engineering teams will try to focus on using the latest and the greatest technology. Business teams will be focused on meeting revenue and NNA goals. But as a product manager, you are responsible for keeping everyone on the same page for building products which customers love and can truly meet their needs. Thirdly, a product manager should be able to influence without authority. As we have already seen, product managers are the central point of contact responsible for shipping products which customers love. But since a product manager does not have direct reports, they will need to influence all these stakeholders without authority by helping them understand the why to make sure that the product is successful. To summarize, in terms of job responsibilities, product managers are responsible for setting a product vision, defining a product strategy, and developing a roadmap that meets both company goals and user needs. Now that we understand what product management is, let's try to understand what are some of the myths of product management so you can be completely sure on the role before making the transition. The first myth we often see is that product managers are termed the CEOs of the product. While product managers are responsible for the success of the product, they are not necessarily the CEOs, as CEOs have completely different job responsibilities. CEOs have direct management job responsibilities, decision making authority, business level objective, ownership, and often founder level credibility for the original vision. PMs have none of these. A PM needs to be able to work with all stakeholders by influencing without authority. Second myth we see is that product managers are the idea generators. While product managers can generate ideas, they are not necessarily the idea generators. Ideas can emerge in multiple ways. Product managers can get ideas talking to their customers, stakeholders, looking at data and dashboards through A B tests, etc. Product managers always get the best ideas while listening to people. The third myth we see is that product manager's job is done after launch. This is not true, and as a PM, it's their responsibility to always iterate based on feedback and course correct if needed, so that they can build products which customers truly love. The fourth myth we see is that product managers need technical degree. While this is true for technical product management roles, it's not necessarily the case for all PM roles. Some PM roles are customer centric and may not necessarily need a technical degree. As long as product managers are able to understand the customer problems, communicate with all stakeholders accordingly, they can be extremely successful without a technical degree. Now that you have understood what product management is and what it is not, let me walk you through how customer facing roles and analytics roles overlap with product. Typically, in a large organization, there is a customer success team who works with external customers and helps them implement the product offerings. Some of the roles you would hear are solutions engineer, integration engineer, customer success manager, technical account manager, etc. So let's take example of PayPal, right? So in PayPal, solutions engineer typically work with external merchants, understand their payment requirements, and help them integrate PayPal product offerings. The product offerings, however, are typically taken care by a product manager where they define the overall vision and strategy. However, as a solutions engineer, you would be the one who would actually hear the first-hand feedback from customers as you are interacting with them more closely. And this customer feedback is extremely critical for the product manager as well, so that they are able to understand how their product is being perceived by customers and if there are any challenges, how they can solve for these challenges, right? So as you can see here, both solutions engineer and product manager have similar priorities, and that is to ensure that customers are able to meet their needs through the product offerings. Now let's talk about analytics. Right? Analytics teams are typically responsible for providing data-driven insights and recommendations. As a data analyst, you're working on writing SQL scripts in order to pull data and derive useful insights and provide recommendations, which can help meet the goals. Data is extremely critical for product managers as it will help them understand the real impact of products they are driving. A product manager can introduce a new change in the product, but only with data can they truly measure if this feature is indeed a success or if it requires a course correction. A product manager is expected to be able to make data driven decisions, and this is possible only by having the ability to understand data and insights. As you can see here, both data analysts and product managers are expected to derive insights from data and to take data driven decisions. Analytics teams and customer success teams are extremely critical to ensure the product success, and these teams work very closely. Now that we understand the overlap of product management in these roles, what are some of the building blocks to transition into product management? First, start working on small product management projects in your current role. This can demonstrate your interest towards product management, and it's not very hard as this is something you're already familiar with. Let's take an example, right? So, in case of PayPal, as a solutions engineer, you would work with multiple PayPal merchants and help them integrate PayPal. There'll be scenarios where customers are not happy with a particular feature or there is a particular product gap. If you observe a pattern here, you can put on the PM hat and write up a requirements document and bring this up to the product manager. The product manager may or may not take your suggestion, but that's still okay as you would have demonstrated the experience of thinking like a product manager. Next, data is extremely useful to determine the impact of a particular feature you're recommending. For example, if you see that multiple customers are requesting for the same feature or complaining about the same problem, this can increase the importance of having this feature implemented with quantitative data. Another example could be that because of a particular feature gap, the company lost many potential new customers. So, from an analytics perspective, you can use quantitative data on the number of customers lost, TPV lost as a result of this feature gap, which can increase the impact of the feature implemented in the product. Second, shadow other PMs in your current company. This will give you a very good perspective of the day to day workings of a PM and will also help you make the right decision on taking PM as a career. You can approach PMs you look up to and request them to add you on a few meetings. Most of the PMs will be happy to help aspiring product managers and they will be willing to help. Third, network with people and work with leaders and mentors in your current company or outside that you're interested in product management. Talk about the mini projects you're already working on, and this would demonstrate your interest towards product. Leaders often have a tight network, and they would always keep you in mind for any future opportunity. What are some of the ways to transition to product? The first and the most common way I have seen folks transition is to transition within your current company. I transitioned in this way, and I feel it's easier as you already understand how the company works. Second, you can also transition to another company in the similar domain. For example, if you're working for a fintech company, then you can possibly think of exploring product management roles in other fintech companies. Third, you can also transition to a smaller company as a product manager. Typically, in a smaller company, there would not be a customer success team or a separate analytics team. The product managers will wear multiple hats and they may like talk to customers directly or pull up the data themselves. This would give you a leverage on transitioning as a product manager as you would already have this experience. So here are three ways which I've seen typically people use to transition to product. There might be other ways out there as well, but these are my takeaways on how you can transition to product. How to prepare for a PM interview. There are many resources out there, but here are my favorite. Right. So the first being Cracking the PM Interview by Gail and Jackie and Decode and Conquer by Louis C. Lynn. Both these books are great. They give you a very detailed overview on what to expect in product manager interviews. They also have very detailed frameworks on how to approach different types of problems you are typically seen in a product manager interview. So, for anybody preparing for a PM interview, I highly recommend you all to go through both of these books. The other interesting website is Exponent. They have a lot of good material on product management, and they are typically written by product managers working in all of these big companies out there. They also have mock interviews where you could schedule a mock interview, and this is extremely helpful as they'll give you feedback on how to answer particular questions typically asked in a PM interview. Say you've made the transition into PM successfully, right? So, what are some of the ways to make sure that you are successful as a PM? So, first and foremost, always build products for your customer, and customer is always your number one priority. Like I've mentioned before, teams can have different priorities, but as a product manager, you should always think about your customers first and build products which truly solve customer needs. Secondly, practice active listening. This is an extremely important skill to be successful as a PM, but oftentimes it's not really highlighted as one of the top skills. But in my view, active listening is extremely important because only if you're actively listening is when you truly understand what are the true customer problems out there and can actually help shape the product which can solve these needs. Third, prioritize ruthlessly. As a product manager, you'd have a big backlog of items you'd have to work on, and different people in the company would be reaching out to you, letting you know that their feature is priority and it has to be delivered by so and so date. But as a product manager, your priority is always the customer, and then what it means is, yeah, make sure that you understand the priorities of the product and the customer and prioritize accordingly, and be able to say a no to things which don't fit into this priority. The fourth important skill would be able to communicate to all stakeholders accordingly. By communication, I don't necessarily mean presentation skills, but to be able to understand viewpoints of all the stakeholders and to bring everybody on the same page, and helping them understand how your product is solving their needs and also customer needs is extremely critical to become a successful PM. So, to summarize, here are the takeaways which I'd like all of you to take from this presentation, right? First, customer facing and analytics roles have a lot of overlap with product. So, since they have a lot of overlap, work on building blocks for transition. That is, work on smaller PM projects in your current role, shadow other product managers, work with leaders and mentors expressing your interest. Once you're ready, you can transition to PM roles either internally within the same company or to another company in the same domain or to a smaller company, right? But last but not the least, in order to be a successful PM, always employ a customer first approach, practice active listening, prioritize ruthlessly, and communicate effectively to all stakeholders. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope this was useful. Here's my LinkedIn contact information. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, once again, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great day.